Bryson and Alvin who made this possible. Now, speaking of high tech, as many of you know, we are going to be saying goodbye to the old app and we're going to put in a new one. Now, this next week, we're going to send an update explaining how to use the new app, how to download it, as well as the new communication platform. So we've been using it, experimenting with it in the office, and it works great. And naturally, the app is a good place for communication, prayer requests. You can listen to sermons, you can even give. And speaking of giving, we have seen some spectacular giving from you. I read an article this past week where pastors were asked, how has this crisis impacted the giving? And 1% of the pastors said that their giving has dramatically increased. And to be honest, if they were to ask me that question, that would be my answer. You guys have been wonderful. I think all of us at the staff are just so humbled by your generosity. And I think as a pastor, I'm really encouraged because it just shows that you guys really have faith. You are trusting in the Lord. You really care about the ministry. And it is just a great honor and a privilege to shepherd you and to be encouraged by just the growth that we see. Now, we are going to have an unusual Easter Sunday, no Easter breakfast, but one thing we want to do is we want to have communion with you. Now, naturally, we can't be with you in body, but we want to be with you in spirit. And so what we're going to do is during Communion Sunday, on Easter Sunday, everybody will have their own piece of bread and they will have their own juice or grape product. For those of you who've always wanted to do it, if you want to have wine, that's between you and the Lord, okay? We just don't want to know about it. And so what we're going to do is we're going to give a devotion, then all of us are going to grab a piece of bread and then some juice or some other grape beverage, and we will take it at the same time. It's not the same, but we think it's still important to celebrate this, and we think this is a way that we could do it. Also, this Sunday, we're going to continue with the same format. All of you seem to really enjoy the Sunday school, but we're going to mix it up a little bit. Instead of having an elder Q&A, we're going to follow up on the sermon that I preached last week, Conviction for Conversion. And we're going to have the pastors get up and we're going to just talk about evangelism. We're going to talk about maybe some mistakes we've made, some objections that we often encounter and how do we deal with those, as well as some strategies that we take to get into conversations. If you have some questions about evangelism, send it to us ahead of time. And again, we want to keep on interacting with you and really try to keep the rhythm of Sunday morning going. Now, this Sunday, I'm also going to break my rhythm of 1 Timothy. Instead of going to the next passage, I thought it might be wise to take some time to talk about anxiety. As you know, we had our first death in the area yesterday. The amount of COVID-19 cases is rapidly rising. Some of you are unable to work because of city codes and ordinances. And so we're going to hear from the words of Jesus, specifically Matthew 6:19 through 34. And the sermon title is 7 Solutions for Sinful Anxiety. We're going to allow the Word of God to comfort and challenge our souls. Now, by way of encouragement, I also wanted to take some time to give you some encouragement about the importance of being in the Word. The pastors, we've been going through a real interesting book called The Dynamic Heart by Jeremy Pierre. He's a counseling professor at Southern Baptist Theological Seminary, and it's all about how our heart is very dynamic. There's different nuances to it, and we often find ourselves doing what we don't want to do. I mean, why is it that a mother who would actually die for her children mentally murder them and yell at them in a rage? Why does a husband who is just really devoted to his wife, who loves his wife, why does he look at porn? Why does somebody who believes in the sovereignty of God cave into anxiety? Well, the simple answer is all of this stems from the heart. Jesus teaches us in Mark 7:20 through 23, what comes out of a person is what defiles him. For from within, out of the heart of man, come evil thoughts, sexual immorality, theft, murder, adultery, coveting, wickedness, deceit, sensuality, envy, slander, pride, foolishness. All these things come from within and they defile a person. I mean, what really needs to happen to change our behavior is to change the heart. Now, when you look at the heart, scripturally speaking, there's three basic functions. Number one, there is the volitional function. It's the seat of decision making, the choices that we make. You also have the affection. We treasure things, we desire things, and that really comes from the heart. And then you have cognition, right? The heart is the source of thought and reflection, and all these things work together. Now, let's say I had a young mother who was just very despondent. She loves her children, but she finds that she seems to lose it with the kids. She just flies into a rage. She can't control her temper. So she comes, I talk to her, and then I tell her, you know, next time you're about to fly into a rage, I want you to think of two words, okay? Two words. Two words that will change your life. Are you ready? Stop it. Next time you fly into a rage, just stop it. Just don't do it, okay? Be warm, be filled. I mean, is that going to work? I think we all know the answer, right? So let's say I probe a little bit different. I go beyond the volition. I say, so what do you feel when you want to fly into a rage? I don't know. I just can't control it. It just kind of comes out of me. I just kind of feel this anger kind of welling inside of me. Okay. Try not to feel that way, and then you won't do it. I mean, is that going to work? See, this is where we get into the real source of the problem. I ask her, so tell me, when do you lose it with the kids? Well, it's often when I'm busy and they're misbehaving, and okay. What happens after you yell? Well, they tend to fall in line, to be honest. Well, that's interesting. Do you see what's happening? Is she begins to believe that yelling at her kids is a way of controlling them. She begins to believe that she can't help herself. And you see, all of our hearts are informed by knowledge. It might be knowledge that you had growing up. It might have been the way you were raised. It could be the television that you are watching, the media intake. It could be the word. It could be the advice of friends. There's all kinds of sources of knowledge. And so how do you change that affection, and how do you change that behavior so that you are thinking rightly, so that you are feeling rightly, so that you make the right decision? Well, this is when you exercise your will to go to the Word. You go to, let's say, Romans 12, 1 through 2, where Paul says, I appeal to you, therefore, brothers, by the mercies of God, to present your bodies as a living sacrifice, holy and acceptable to God, which is your spiritual worship. And then this is the key point, verse 2. Do not be conformed to this world, but be transformed by the renewal of your mind, that by testing you may discern what is the will of God, what is good and acceptable and perfect. You see, part of changing your mind is to recognize worldly thinking when you see it. For instance, when somebody loses it, they just think, I can't help it. That was the way I was raised. These kids are driving me crazy. But that's when you confront that thought and that cognition with the truth of 1 Corinthians 10:13. No temptation has overtaken you that is not common to man. God is faithful, and he will not let you be tempted beyond your ability, but with the temptation will also provide a way of escape that you may be able to endure it. And so instead of saying, I can't stop it, you say, I won't stop it because God has given me a way of escape. And so often in counseling, I try to identify the deception and replace it with the truth. Now, all this to say, to really change, to really get the most out of this crisis, to really grow, what do you have to do? You have to read the Word. You have to spend time in the Word. My wife's Bible study has a slogan, which is kind of catchy. It's the Word before the world. Before you watch Fox News, before you check your Facebook feed, before you check the body count of COVID-19, before you see if there's any more cases in Lyon County, what should you do? You spend time in the Word. You let the Word of God control your thinking. Now, one thing with this COVID-19 crisis is all of us have a lot of extra time. And so how are you spending it? Are you spending more time in the Word or less time in the Word? Secondly, oops, somebody called me. We are live, by the way. Secondly, you also want to take advantage of some of the Bible studies that we have. Some of you have a hard time making the Bible studies because it's so far away. Well, we've actually switched over to Zoom. Many of you can go on a Zoom Bible study, and you can go ahead and fellowship around the Word there. So don't wait this crisis. I firmly believe that our best days are ahead of us. I think we're going to look back at this as a time when God really sanctified us and changed us and really equipped us to reach Emporia and the world. So my friends, stay faithful. Someday we'll all be together, but remember that God is still on his throne and he's still good.